Nice crowd today. We're going to open up the floor.
Nice crowd.
Front row, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Hi, Ryan. I know you're not going to comment on what's going on specifically in Michigan, but just sign stealing in general, how much you have to be aware of. I know it's nothing new. We talked to you about it before the Clemson game a few years ago. Just how aware of it do you have to be?
Yeah, whether anything regarding that right now, I'm just not gonna comment on today. I'd rather just focus on Wisconsin. But I obviously appreciate it. You got to ask your questions. But that's just something I don't want to get into right now. Yeah.
Second row right, Bill Land.
He can ask another question if he wants, because that doesn't really count. That's kind of just the one you throw out there.
Dallin, is it the plan still to redshirt Dallin, or you just kind of wait and see?
No. Well, I mean, we're going to keep pushing that this week and evaluate it again this week. But, we'll see how the week goes. But we're going to push it to see if we can get him in a game this week. Yeah.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals, the podcast.
Right, on the play where Devin got hurt, was there any discussion about whether or not he actually scored on that play? It looked kind of close. I don't know if they didn't announce a replay. But
they did review it. They did, yeah, and they said he was short. Yeah, we knew it was really close. Once he went down, I figured wouldn't have to use a challenge because I thought it was really close. But once that happened, they let me know that they did review the call.
And I know you said I think last night on the radio that you're not going to have him for a few weeks. So does that package of plays get shelved? Do you look at, can Lincoln do any of that stuff, or a Wildcat situation?
He's very athletic, and he can. He's younger, but he is athletic. So we're going to look to see if we can maybe possibly get him in that role. See how the week goes.
Fourth row middle, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, with Carnell Tate being as advanced as he is, where does he compare to guys at this time in the past? Chris Olave and Marvin, those guys.
Similar. I mentioned that to somebody just the other day. When you look at where Chris was that year, Garrett, Jackson, those guys, Marvin, Mech, they were coming on as you hit the mid-year, and then the second half of the season is where they really made an impact. And I think Carnell coming at mid-year allowed him the opportunity to be in that same position and kind of be on the same trajectory.
Do you view him basically as a starter at this point?
He's a contributing member of the offense, and he does. He's got really good skill set. He's got to keep growing and building for sure, but he's somebody that we feel confident putting in the game.
Second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just kind of more on the Lincoln stuff. I know that's a guy where we're talking about Dallin in redshirting situations. That was probably the plan with Lincoln as well. How much does that change? And then also, is Tristan your cleared QB2 with Devin being out?
I don't. I think we'll go through the week and give those guys reps and see how that goes. Tristan has experience. I think they might be 5 or 6 years apart. Talk about different guys. But I think where those guys are. One's a more experienced guy. One is a younger guy that we think has a really bright future here. So both are different, spots in their career, and we'll kind of see how this week goes. Devin's been getting the majority of the reps with the two, so those guys haven't really got a ton of reps. We do practice on Sunday, afterwards, and allow the younger guys to get reps. So that's where Lincoln's got a bunch of his reps. I think he's done a great job of staying engaged. Tristan's done a great job in his role, but now that role is going to change this week. So we'll see how the week goes, and who knows, maybe they both will have an opportunity.
Can other guys maybe play that role, like maybe Xavier, other people? Does it have to necessarily be a quarterback in this situation when you guys go with that red zone package?
No, I mean, we do have guys, and Xavier played, a little bit of that in high school, and we've messed around with a couple things with Mecca, but it certainly makes it, going on the road and, with the environment, to put somebody in there like that. I mean, that's kind of a tough spot to be in. So we usually like to use the quarterbacks.
Right behind him, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, it seemed like the running game, you kind of got something going there in the first half, and then in the second half, it really wasn't effective at all. Just when you look back at the film, just what did you see as maybe the biggest issues there?
I wish I could point to one thing, but I think it was a combination again, which, isn't good enough. They're very good against the run, don't get me wrong, but it was, there were times where, there was something that wasn't fit up front properly, or it was the running back, maybe not hitting the hole correctly. There was a couple runs in there that I wish, schematically we had back. But again, I'm just looking at the film. I don't think there was anything there that we just had an extra guy coming off the edge. So, we got to execute it better. We got to coach it better. And, that's on us as coaches to get it done. And, so we'll work our tails off to get it done this week, because we need that balance, and we got to be able to do that.
How fixable do you feel like those issues are at this point?
I think they're fixable, but we got to get them fixed. That's the bottom line. And so we'll keep grinding on that.
Right behind it, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, I assume the answer to this will be competitive excellence, but you come off a big emotional win against Penn State.
Yep.
You go on the road to a tough place against a team that maybe hasn't had the success. We've kind of seen this story before with Iowa a handful of years ago. How do you keep the guys at that same level in maybe a game that won't necessarily have the same feel, even though it's a night game on the road?
Right. It's that competitive stamina that you mentioned. I mean, that's the term that we talk about in the in the preseason. When you look at the schedule, we talk about where we're going to be, and we knew we had to go on the road this year and be road warriors. Notre Dame early on was going to be a really difficult environment. We knew this was going to be the same way, and so we talked about it on Sunday as a team that we've got to bring it this week. They're playing well. They're a good football team. They're got a really good opportunity to win their side, and we can't let last week affect this week. And if we want to, championship teams bring it every week. They don't have ups and downs and letdowns, so we're not allowed to have a letdown. We got to bring it, and we know it'll be a night game. I think it's Halloween weekend. I mean, it's going to be rocking. We know that. So it all starts with what kind of practice week we're going to have, and we've got to do a great job today of getting out there and putting it on the field, and first, second down, then coming back and having a great Wednesday, and then building towards it. But that's something that we've talked about for a couple of years now. You've heard me say that, we're not allowed to have a bad day. We can't do that. And this is an example of going on the road, in the middle to end of the season against a really good team. And, this is always a big challenge for anybody in the conference. And so we got to do a great job this week.
Third row right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Going back to the run game struggles, I know every coach is chasing balance. I get that, but I guess at what point in the season do you just have to accept that you are who you are on offense and maybe adjust accordingly to that?
Oh, we do that every week. Yeah, we're trying to figure out what we do best. We go in there and try to identify the things that we think we can do well, and then what fits for that week. Each week is a different challenge, different styles of defenses in the conference. But that's something we do on a weekly basis.
Is it reasonable to expect that you'll see improvement in the run game that you haven't seen through 7 weeks of the season, that you can still get to that point?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's a valid question. It's at what point? I think there has been signs of that, and so we're going to keep pushing, and we think getting a couple guys back could help as well, help us become more explosive. So we keep pushing. We believe we can do it, and I know we can. I mean, the number one goal is to win and be 1-0 on Saturday night, but you do want to see certain progress in areas that you're focusing on. Some of them we have over the season, some that we need to do a better job of. But now as we get into the home stretch, we got to be playing our best football. We said that, right? We want to be playing our best football at the end of the season, so we got to roll.
Far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
This may be from the same family of questions, but has the college game ever considered technology in the helmet audio to, you don't need 6 people on the sideline?
I believe they have. It's come up in meetings, but I don't know where that's at right now.
Like a cost issue or?
Right, I'm not exactly sure. Yeah.
And how do you avoid the distraction of all of that up there? And maybe you just said it.
Yeah, well, again, when you're at Ohio State, there's always going to be noise. Whether it's things that you aren't doing well or things you are doing well. Coming off of a game like we just had was exciting. Our defense played excellent. There was flashes on offense. You win the game. It's your second top 10 victory in first 7 weeks. You have to ignore that noise too. I still come to work every day thinking we're not very good. and I feel like we should have won by 30 points, and you have to have that mentality, because whether good, bad, or indifferent, you can't ignore you have to ignore what's going on outside, because what matters is what's going on in this building right here and getting better and winning on Saturday. So that's part of being at Ohio State, and we love that part of it because everything we do is relevant, but we have to make sure we're staying focused and avoiding all distractions.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
Do you have an update on Trey, Denzel, and Mecca will be available this week?
Yeah, we're expecting to have great weeks of practice out of those guys. Expecting to have them ready on Saturday. I know that I said that last week and didn't quite get there, but no, we're looking to have a really good week of practice and having those guys available.
And facing a man who spent a lot of time in this building, what stands out about what Luke is doing in Wisconsin?
I think it just started when he was at Cincinnati and what he did there and what he built. His teams are always well coached. Certainly, he left a lot behind here as a player and as a coach. Very well respected by so many, and so we know going in that they're going to be well coached. They're going to play hard. They have a bunch of guys on that staff with great experience, and so nothing but respect for Luke, his staff, the team, the program. Wisconsin's always been an excellent program, and Luke's done a great job.
Second, third row left, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Coach, Travion, when he does play, hopefully this weekend, as you said, how much difference can he make in your running game, and what do you expect?
Well, we hope he makes a big impact. Certainly, we know that he can hit home runs, and he did that in the Notre Dame game, and certainly that was a big difference in what we're doing. We have confidence in all of our running backs, but he does allow us the opportunity to hit a home run and be explosive. So that doesn't just happen. There's a lot that comes with that, but hopefully we get a good week of practice and we can go put it on the field.
Second row left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Just to kind of piggyback on the question that Pat asked you before, but you were on the staff in 2017 and 2018 when you had those kind of unexpected losses. Did that experience inform how you have maybe approached things since then as the programs become your own? Are there things that you've tried to emphasize to not have those sorts of unexpected collapses?
Yeah. Every year you learn things. You identify the things that you did well, and then you recognize the things that you have to improve on. And every year you learn. You learn about your staff. You learn about the players. You learn in recruiting how to adapt. But you also learn as the season goes on things that have happened, things that you recognized where you have to make sure that you're communicating some things that may happen a certain way, and you try to communicate that to your team and make sure that everyone's aware of that so you don't get ambushed. And again, the more experience you have, you try to do the best you can to relay it to everybody to make sure they're prepared, because our goal again is to put them in the best situation to be successful. And so that's why we have to have a great week of practice to make sure we're out in front of this and we're playing our best football on Saturday night.
How would you assess Carson Hentman's performance right now relative to where you expected maybe someone in his position to be halfway through this year, but also with such little experience he has, maybe especially with this kind of offense?
Yeah, Carson coming in had not started a game before, really hadn't played a whole bunch of football. So, we know that he's got he's talented and he's got a bright future ahead of him. And, losing Whippler last year, forced him into action. And I thought, there's been some really good moments out there where he's done some really good things. There's still things he's growing on, just like everybody, but or building on, and he's growing. And, the goal is to have his best football here now be the home stretch, because there's no way to replace, playing on the road in these styles of games, or seeing these different styles of defense week in and week out. We've seen 4 down, we've seen 3 down, we've seen 5 down, we've seen pressures, and those are all new experiences for him, just like a quarterback would be. And for the center, there's a lot of communication that goes on. You have to get everybody on the same page. You have to handle the snap count. You got to handle the snap, and then you got to do your job. So, got to be able to multitask. And he's growing with it. He's building. It's not an easy job. But again, the goal is that he's going to be playing his best football here down the stretch.
Front row right, Austin Ward, the podcast Rivals.
Ryan, we've seen Kyle when the stakes are highest, meet the moment. We've seen him make throws into really ridiculous windows, and then they're just at times like the easy ones don't seem to connect. What causes that with a young quarterback? How can you work through that?
Well, it starts with practice, being consistent in practice and building that confidence so that, as coaches, we got to continue to put them in situations where, hey, the game almost is easier than practice. And that's where it starts. And then you build the confidence of seeing the look and seeing the throws and making the throws consistently. And that's just what it comes down to, is being consistent, trusting your feet, trusting your eyes, and then making the routine plays routinely, and then taking care of the football. So I think there's definitely been signs where we've done that, and when we do, the offense is rolling. And so we'll keep working on that, and just, like I mentioned about Carson, the goal is that we're playing our best football here over the next month.
The screen to Marvin early, it's hard. I have no idea. It's hard for me to tell if maybe Marvin took a step the wrong way, if Kyle was pressured. When you evaluated that play and we're saying, well, the throw was off target, how much of that on that one was Kyle? How much of it was something that we don't know? Yeah,
we could probably go through the film and go through each of the plays and identify, who was right, who was wrong in these situations. And so what I don't like to do is point fingers one way or another. But the bottom line is, I think that's what I'm talking about with practice. We've got to be so clean that, we take the practice field to the game and that we connect. And it's our job as receivers, as quarterbacks, as coaches to make sure that it's exact on the field. The timing, the spacing, the protection, all of that. And I can't just say it's one thing, but we've got to connect in those areas. We've got to do that. Whether it's first and second down, third down, red zone. So we'll work back. We'll get back at it this week to make sure that we're efficient. Because you can see what's out there. The possibilities are there. It's there. We got to go do it. And if we're going to make this run here, we're going to need to do that.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, as far as the helmet technology goes, in the NFL they have the mics in the system, and you just mentioned that, talked about. Would you be in favor of something like that? Would you be supportive of it?
Yeah, I think it's again, it's not something that we're going to discuss right now. Because it doesn't really matter right now. What matters is playing this game. But I do think we should definitely consider that, because it would certainly help.
How did you find it in the NFL one? Because that was in place when you were there.
Yeah, it was good. The coach on the sideline had the walkie-talkie, and he would be able to communicate, into the headset.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, the numbers from PFF say that Josh Simmons has had his 3 best run blocking grades in each of the last 3 games. Does that line up with what you guys are seeing in the progression from him? And where do you see him still needing to get better if you guys are going to make the run that you're talking about?
I would say it's the consistency. Yeah, there's some really great snaps of film out there, and you're seeing finish, you're seeing pad level. You're seeing really high end play, and it just needs to be a little bit more consistent. He knows that. And that's not just him. And that's why when someone asks, is it fixable? I think these things are. We just need to be more consistent. But the talent is definitely there.
Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, this obviously the iron sharpens iron when you guys go good on good in practice. Specifically with the relationship between the corners and the receivers, over the course of the last year, what's it been like to watch those corners compete against them and improve to the level they're at?
That's the thing that we talk about here. I think you've heard me say that iron sharpens iron. We get each other better every day. It's not just the 12 Saturdays in the fall. It's every day in practice, and guys are getting each other better. Whether it's, I think one of the reasons why maybe, our tackles were able to block the defensive ends this past weekend is because, you're going against JT and Jack every day in practice, and vice versa. I think, JT and Kenyatta and Jack were able to get pressure, on a really good left tackle because they go against our tackles every day. So it's the same thing on the back end with the receivers and the DBs. And I think it allows them to have confidence knowing that if I'm going against this guy who's, one of the better guys in the country, then when I play against some of the other teams and play in a matchup game, I can play with confidence because I know I've seen myself have success against somebody as good as they are.
Kind of off that, when you have a freshman like Jermaine, he's playing his first major snaps in a huge game. what you see from spring to now, from him, is that what gives you the confidence knowing that, like, I mean, Jim made a point that he didn't even really know how big the moment was. Is that what you
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, that's probably right. You know, he just that was him, and that is him, but he's one of the more competitive guys that, you know, we had in this incoming class. He loves to compete, and the moment wasn't too big for him, and now he's got to be consistent. You know, it's one thing to do it. Now it's another thing to do it, you know, multiple weeks in a row. So he did step up in a big way, and he has made a lot of progress from, you know, from when he came in. But that's part of being a freshman. You know, it's part of it is, you know, the football part of it. Other part is just overall, you know, the maturation of a young man.
Andy Baxter, Letterman Roll.
Ryan, did you guys know that Jordan Hancock could be quite this versatile? I mean, he feels like a huge part of this defense at this moment. I guess what has been your perspective of his development?
Yeah, we felt like when we were recruiting him that this is what we thought he could be. That we thought there was versatility there between nickel and corner, and that's what you're seeing. Very competitive, very instinctual. You know, and you're seeing it. You know, he works really hard. You know, he's another guy with a great work ethic that is always in here watching film, getting extra work in. He's very serious. You know, he's very frustrated last year with that injury that he had, and so worked hard this offseason, and now you're starting to see his best football.
For that 2021 class, you talked before the season about this was going to be a big year for them. 7 games in now, a couple top 10 wins. I guess what's your assessment of that class and how they've come along?
I think they're getting more and more of these big game experiences, and when you get more battles under your belt, you know, you learn more and more. You become more veteran, and now they're becoming that way, and you know that makes you dangerous as you head into November. So you know, it doesn't mean anything. You know, we still got to play this week and we've got to keep growing, but you know, it does make a difference when you have guys who played a lot of football. And I just think back on maybe some of the other teams we've had the last couple of years. We've been talented, but not as experienced. So again, I've said this before, we're going to count on that being a difference maker here.
Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Ryan, as you go through a season, there's obviously a ton of things that you're thinking about on a week-to-week basis, tons of different evaluations, minutia. How do you evaluate the job individual assistant coaches are doing as far as their primary responsibility throughout the season? Like, is that a conversation you have now, or does it always have to wait until the end of the year?
No, it doesn't have to wait. I think the first and the easiest way to identify it and evaluate is, you know, are your guys grading out as champions during the game? And if yes, then keep it going. If not, we got to figure out why that is. You know, if your guys are grading out over 80% in a game, then you know that's the sign that your unit's performing at a high level. And we want, you know, all 10 units to be operating at a high level. If that's the case, we feel like we can win any game in the on the schedule. But if not, then something's going wrong. You know, and you know each guy is responsible for recruiting their position, and then developing their position, and then ultimately the performance on the field. So, you know, we're all being evaluated. You know, me included. So, yeah, every week is an evaluation, in my opinion.
You look at like a year ago with Tim Walton's room, very thin depth-wise, and then a lot of injuries, and then you see the development into this season, and it looks like night and day. I mean, how do you measure all of those different data points?
Yeah, well, first off, it's the eye test, and I think I mentioned that to you guys in the off season, and it's like, okay, you know, we'll believe it when we see it, but they were getting their hands on balls all off season, and then now you're starting to see production on the field, and that's what you look for. You know, you look for the eye test, you look for how are they practicing, and then ultimately how are they performing on the field.
Tom Moore, Buckeye Huddle.
There have been a couple times in goal-to-go situations, red zone situations, where you've gone heavy, taken Marvin off the field. I think looking from the outside, you look at how much attention Marvin gets, and I think, you know, it's sort of easy to say just throw him out to the field side and you know have a guy or two chase him out there, and then maybe that gives you numbers advantage, or you got Marvin one-on-one. What's the thinking behind not just always throwing Marvin out there by himself? Yeah,
well, yeah, I think it's a good point. You know, when you get down there on the 1 or 2 yard line, you know, we got to get in. You know, it's unacceptable not to get in. So we have long discussions on what gives us the best chance to do that, and we'll keep doing that. And you know, if having Marv out there gives us the best opportunity, then we'll do that as well. But you know, I feel like, you know, we got to be able to make a yard or two when we get down in there. And I know there's a lot of people in the box. I get it, but you know, but we'll keep looking at it and making sure that we're doing what's right and putting our guys in the right situation.
All right, Adam King, WPIX.
kind of joked about winning with defense, but I'm curious, knowing that you have a defense that can go out there and make plays like they did this Saturday, does that change your scheme on offense at all? Does it change your play calling thoughts?
I mean, I think, like, balls on a 2-yard line, we got to get in the end zone. I mean, it's just ridiculous that we're not getting in the end zone in that spot. But overall, I just feel like, we're still trying to score every time we touch the ball. When we get into the second half of a game, or we get into a situation where, the defense is playing really well, we also want to make sure that we're 1-0 at the end of the night, and that's my job, to make sure we're winning. But that doesn't mean we're not trying to score, 50 points every time we go on the field. We're gonna look to do that. And but as the game goes on, there's certain things where you have to make sure you're not putting your team at risk, and being, foolish.
Doug Maurice, Kings of Columbus.
Marv's percentage of snaps in the slot has gone up the last 3 games. Now that also coincides with Emeka, his injury. Yeah. But we sort of talked a lot in the preseason about moving Marv around. And just, can you take us through the process a little bit of when you have a player that good that a defense is going to key on, and yet you find a way to target him 16 times in a game that important, and he has that kind of impact? Like, how did you guys plan that and then execute it?
Well, it's it takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of work by Marv to make sure that we're trying to maximize him as a player and give him the opportunities to win in man-to-man. And I think if you just kind of leave him in one spot all the time, it makes things a lot easier for the defense to key in on him and do everything they can to take him away. So we have to constantly be creative and find ways to do that. And that's our challenge week in and week out. The more efficient we can be in other areas, the less pressure it puts on Marv. So I know that we have to do a better job of taking pressure off of him, but at the same time, we're going to try to find as many ways as we can get him the ball.
And when you decide to go to something like a quarterback run package like you've done with Devin, certainly there's skill sets involved with the people, but also, not that you don't want anyone to get hurt.
Right.
But when you see the number 2 quarterback get hurt on a play like that, is that part of why maybe you don't want the starting quarterback doing that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a part of it. When you're involved in those styles of runs, you put yourself at risk. I thought Devin ran hard again. I mean, he poured it up in there and just came up short. But you have to, that's kind of the risk and reward. And we lost him in that game and probably will for at least a week or 2. And so that's what you try to weigh out. What gives you the best chance and what's the risk versus the reward.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You said on Saturday when you were asked about Kyle that you'd have to look at the tape and there was going to be some throws that he missed. He made some good throws, but also some ones he missed. Yep. When you watched it again, what was your take on it? And are you content? That's a loaded word, but with where he is 7 games into his first year as a starter.
Yeah, I mean, there was, like we kind of felt like coming off the field, there was really good plays, and then certainly plays where you like to execute better. I don't think that's unique to Kyle. I think there's a lot of guys who felt that way, and he's in a much different place than he was early in the season. He's got 2 top 10 wins under his belt, and so that there's got to be a lot of confidence there. But there's still room for growth, which is exciting. When we watch the film, I mean, there's things that we did well, and other things that we can do better. So he was critical of himself. We're critical of ourselves as coaches, making sure we're putting him in the right spot. And so if we started out here and we want to get to here, where are we at in that progression? I don't exactly know, but I know that he's still got a lot of great football ahead of him.
On Saturday, you had the punt that hit Lorenzo. Obviously, it took a funny bounce.
Yep.
But there have been special teams blunders almost every week. How concerned are you about that, and what's your solution for that?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the play a couple weeks ago when the snap cut, blundered, and then this one right here, the bottom line is those things can't happen. That's just it. And one, it slipped out of his hands. It can't slip out of your hands. 2, the ball bounced, and JB yells makes the call, points to it, but Lorenzo doesn't hear him. We got to be louder. That's just what it is. And those are two strange plays, but they could cost you a game. And so we've got to be better. We can't let that stuff, because that was a huge swing. Even the ball in the 2, we get a stop, and we got to get that ball around midfield. We don't, and then we get to put the defense back on the field. So regardless of how that all shook out or took a funny bounce, it doesn't matter. It just cannot happen. And we got to get the ball back in those situations.
And final questions, front row, Tim May on 3, Letterman Road.
Thank you, Jerry. Just 3 quickies. Number one, when y'all watch the play, the third,
You add ones every week.
Yeah, the 3rd and goal out of the out formation, and literally the offensive line came off the ball as one.
Yeah.
One guy was off the line, was a beat late, and that's the guy
That made the play.
When you watch that on video, when you show it to the team, do y'all throw stuff at the screen? I mean, what you know what I mean?
Yes.
What is the reaction, and how do you get that point across? Because that's a veteran guy.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's no question. You're exactly right. You hit it right on the head. We probably need to, move him up in that situation, give him a better chance to make that block. But he's done so many great things. So ultimately that's going to come down on us. We got to do a better job of putting him in a better situation. But yeah, that makes literally make us, we can't eat solid food. It's just sick. The fact that we didn't get in right there. But I just feel like we got to put him in a better situation.
The mesh lives, but as Marvin makes that catch and cuts across and goes to the side, Carnell Tate, freshman.
Yeah, great awareness.
Threw really 2 blocks on that play. Yeah. And of course, the game is coming right at him, flopping on that onside kick, and he makes the catch and stuff. How does that elevate him in your mind? And what does it just show you about him and his gamesmanship? Yeah, gamesmanship and awareness in that spot. And I think there probably was a situation where maybe he could have pushed him in the back, but he didn't, and then he slid off to the next. It's just really good awareness. Great signs for a young player. And then, they see Marv on one side and they see Carnell on the other side. They say, we're going to kick to the freshman. And he makes a play smooth and goes down and game's over. Don't take those things for granted. That's somebody who the moment's not too big for him. He was ready for that. And again, really encouraging for his future.